Well, hello everyone. Here to show you that the emergency exit meetings coloring activity right here is basically that shown right here of say an example right here, say of emergency exit it is. And if most of us have used it before, have used an emergency exit before and seen them around, it is. And basically though, that if most of us know how they work, it is that they have like say a handle right here. And most emergency exits, I don't know about all of them, but most of them were like these, like which that would have be highlighted, say in red. It is red or yellow, type color. It is red or red and yellow color that more likely in case of a power failure or something like that. And a lot of times, I guess, make it easy to where they could be spotted. At certain areas, it is within about, I would say, at least within about 75 feet or so. It's like inside of a building. It is, but basically that you have right here is an example. Right here is an emergency exit, and note about that with most emergency exits, whenever you push on the handle, it is that most of the time that they would do like which they make that sound. It is like but other than that, you have right here is like example right here, say of a fire, and a lot of times that for like say example for like emergency exits, a lot of times that they would be used in case that there was like any type of a fire situation. It was that with any type of fire hazard that it was that more likely that with the emergency exit that would come in say hand, like in case that there was a fire, a breakout, or anything like that. Any type of, it could be a chemical fire or anything like that. But from the chemical fire, that it could be chemical fire, or it could be any other type of reason to evacuate a building or somewhere. It is to use the emergency exit. It is. And a lot of times though, with anybody, I can talk about besides doors, that if it was anything like a window, it is that with most of the time with windows, that they would have it to where that windows that they would have these what you call these little bracket shaped bars. It is that to where that you would turn them. It's like you turn them from I think from the left to the right. It is just to open up say the brackets, and then of course it would be like which like the whole the frame, of course, from the window would fold down. It is would fold down like what's shown right here. It's like so far with the picture diagram, it would fold outwards like this right here, and into where you would be able to, and then you would have that this much space right here to go ahead and evacuate if you had that to leave a building for whatever reason is, so far as exiting out the window. It is. But I've seen a couple of times in buses it was that they would have like say emergency exits on board buses. It was. But a lot of times though that we may think that that when we see exits, if it's either exits or if it's emergency exits, it is that a lot of times that we like wonder about that with these exits though, that if it's an emergency exit, that knowing about that if they hardly ever get used, or knowing about exactly about the practice exercise about knowing about, and just in case of emergency, it is about knowing about from whenever the day are to be used. It is. And with anybody who would maybe think that really that if you were kind of curious, just to know about, it's like the emergency exit. It was is knowing about what what does it do, or something like that. Maybe just in case of a fire, how does it work? And a lot of times, though, with that, there may be some places that more likely that would do like what you call is like for like we say emergency exit. Exercises is talking about. It's like knowing about where emergency exit will be located at, and knowing about how to open up the door in case if there was a fire situation, or if there was any type of any other type of urgent situation. It was that about when to how to open the door, and then knowing about whenever it sounds, that means that that the sound, say that for whenever the emergency exit is has been engaged. I guess they call it like for engaged, and opened it is, until you like somebody would have a key, to disarm like the sound it is, for what the emergency exit makes. But on the other hand too, that you have right here is like for exit, and what anybody may think about about with emergency exits, that most of the time it's like talk about say between exits and a more emergency exit is, and anybody may have heard of what you call maybe the emergency travel pack, or if it's emergency cabinets. I don't even know if really there's any type of emergency cabinets, but other than that maybe a number of things that you may have at home, or maybe around business, that more likely that you have like what you call is like emergency backup, something such as emergency flashlights, or if it's a emergency phone, a telephone, or if it's anything related to emergency blankets. I don't know if anybody really carries emergency water or emergency food supplies or something like that. But on the other hand, so far with emergency exits, so that it's like right here is for the exit, for meaning for exit sign, and basically that just in case if there's a situation to where if you had to evacuate the building, for any particular reason, it is that there would be emergency exit, somewhere to where you would be able to evacuate the building safely. It is, and with most of the time that with most emergency exits, though, that we can maybe think that if you're going to be in a building that maybe about that's measuring, it's like in quite, say 352 square feet or something like that, say length to width or something like that. If you're going to be in a big building to where you're going to have a lot of, entrance doors and exit doors and stuff like that, that more likely that usually around the back area that places, that like, other stores that more likely would have about, 5 or maybe 6 emergency exits altogether around the building. It is, and a lot of times anybody maybe think that why is it that there's like a buzzard, like zzz, zzz, or zzz, zzz, then that sounds whenever that you open the the emergency exit a lot of times, and I think that a lot of times though that usually means that the emergency exit door is open, and then the only time that really it should be open is in case of say of an emergency. It was, and I guess that sound more likely. Let's just say if there's firefighters outside the building, it is, and maybe want to know if there's anybody trapped in the building, whichever it was, and then maybe the sound of like what you call is like the sound of a zzz, or zzz, would more likely would get their attention. Is, but really, I would not even exactly know what why it means for whenever it makes that sound, such as. But anyway, but you have right here is so far as you say the meaning for emergency exit. It is, and with most time that the way it usually works is that there's a handlebar right here on the door. Is that either there will be like a switch, you say a handlebar, you push the handlebar, and then from there, and then there will be like, let's say, a lock switch or something. You'll push it in, it'll be like say a lock switch, and about right here it is that holds the door closed. You push that out, and then of course activates. Of course, you see the buzzer. It is just to know that the emergency exit door has been opened. It was, and then of course a lot of times somebody would have a key to disarm the sound, to say of what the emergency exit makes. But anyway, talk about say with the exercise of what say emergency exit it is, and with anybody if they ever had any type of training talking about say emergency exit, or if used one of these before, of talk about like that almost every building is going to have an emergency exit, but then knowing about that how to open it is. But on the other hand, that they say that with most part that in case of a fire or anything like that, and if most of us have gone through like what you say the normal exercises, it is if there was like any type of a big amount of smoke or something like that in the air, and a lot of times that they say that is to kneel down. Of course, you'll kneel down on the ground. Kneel down on the ground, and then from there, and then with most of the time we could probably if we ever take any type of firefighting classes, is to say to kneel down, say on the ground it is, and then from there, and then because from all the smoke and stuff that with the heat and smoke that rises, and then from there, and then to find your way, your path, to where you can find, say, an exit. It's like go ahead and draw right here. It's like using the blue right here. Using the blue, but other than that they have right here is like I don't know if this will be me or I can talk about. I'm just drawing like what say example right here of a person. It is. I talk about if they were what you call like a on the ground. It is. Draw like what you say is a shadow right here, but let's just say if they were crawling down on the ground, and then from there, and then they would find their way, of course, to the exit. And with anybody, maybe think about draw the details. And I could maybe more likely recommend anybody to go ahead and try to exercise. Is in case of a fire or in case of an emergency situation such as a grease fire, it is that you may have to evacuate the building at some point. It is, and then knowing about those basic steps, of course, about what you would need to do in case an emergency happened, to where they, if there was a, to find an emergency exit around to where you can, safely get out. It was because anybody may think I'm like you would more likely say that safety is most important, and knowing about that the food that you were cooking, it is that you left your wallet on the burner, you left your wallet in the closet, whichever it is, or you got your apron inside the kitchen, and they're like, no time to get your apron, no time to get your purse, ma'am, or no time. No time to get your keys, your car keys. It's like you talk about. It's like you need to know about that whenever if there is an emergency situation comes up and that you need to leave the building, and then you need to leave the building. It is. But on the other hand, that at the time, that with most of the time that with most emergency exits, that they would be highlighted, was saying in red right here, to where that most of the time it's like a red, pinkish type color. It is, and knowing about that and then I keep thinking about, am I sure about that? I'm like, not exactly sure, because on the other hand, it seems like red seems like it's always meaning as like which calls like if for danger zone or caution zone or something like that. If you would be around anywhere where there's water heaters or furnaces a lot of times, then you would see like what you call red markings. It was red markings, like these type of markings right here, that they would have like say a symbol on there that would represent. It's like so far as hot or do not touch. So caution, it is something like that. But other than that you have right here is example, or say of kneeling to the ground, and then from there, and then they have it to where they, it's like so far as finding the emergency exit, it is. But basically talk about, say, the meaning about the emergency exit, it is. It's basically talking about, for urgent situations of knowing about, to exit safely. And more likely now, like, that's basically what it means. It's like so far as safely, it is that with the way that you would need to evacuate a building, or it's like if it was a school bus or anything related to any room it is inside the building, that more likely that usually if there's not an emergency exit, then more likely that they more likely think about evacuating the building. More likely, maybe harder, but with most of the time with most buildings, it is that there could be emergency exit. And with some people, more likely think that that with some emergency exits had it to where if if there was a point to where that they tried to exit out of the building, and let's just say that that they were hard to get open, it was, and let's just say if it was hot on the other side, let's just say if there was any type of damage on the other side, it was. And a lot of times with a lot of people would say that with most emergency exits, about how they're made, it was, they were made, of course, to take, say, any type of high tensile, say, damage it is, something like that. But I have not really tested, of course. It's like studied about, about what they're made out of. But I would think that on average with most emergency exits, so that they would be made to where that whenever you exit out of a building, it is, as knowing about anybody more I can think about, is it to the outside? Because I've seen emergency exits. I can tell anybody here, I've seen emergency exits that may just lead to a hallway or lead to another room in the house. And I don't know. I mean, how safe is that? How safe is an emergency exit that leads to another part of the building, on the inside? And let's just say if you had to evacuate the building to the outside, it was, and like I talk about, it's like for emergency exit. I'm like emergency exit, directly, just from the room, room to room it is. But I don't know. Anybody may think about, well, then that's not really called an emergency exit, is it? It's called what you call like the emergency, the emergency shortcut. The emergency shortcut. I'm like anybody more. I'm like, yeah, well, we don't need no emergency shortcut. What we really need is an emergency exit, something that leads, to the outside, to where it's going to give you like what you call like that the red and green light to this, or that orange light, so far say precaution. But other than that, you talk about right here, like I'm talking about right here, like say for the emergency exit meetings, it is so far as the number of times, like talk about, like, well, number of times I've used them, and knowing about, that my experience, of course, I've used an emergency exit before, like, talk about but a lot of times, though, with most emergency exits, they make that alarm sound whenever that they were activated. It is something that emergency exits was engaged. It was, or to disengage is knowing about that basically means it's been turned on, and then whoever that from the outside may be able to hear it, and then you'll be able to come and get it for whoever who's trying to get out of the building. It is, but other than that, it's top safe, for the emergency exit, so far as the meetings color activity.